Story 1. I, 45M, have a son, 10M, that loves the show MLP, My Little Pony. He has a few toys, some t-shirts, and posters from the show. We moved recently due to a new job and want to be closer to the family. My ex is not in the picture due to personal reasons. It's been hard raising my son as a single father, but I am doing my best. I love my son and raising him to be respectful to others. My sister, 48F, lives about 15 minutes away. We were really close growing up, but my sister never approved the idea of me raising my son alone. Son is attending the local school and loves his new friend group. My niece, 11F, attends the same school as son. I have been receiving calls from school that my niece and her friends have been bullying son and his friends. He likes to bring a pony toy with him to school to keep in his backpack as it makes him happy. Son came home crying from school that niece broke the toy and threw it in the trash. I was furious and scheduled a meeting with the school and my sister. My sister thinks it's them goofing around and having fun. Counseling was suggested and my sister thought the idea was ridiculous. When we were leaving, my sister pulls me aside and says maybe you should have son watch something more appropriate for boys. If he had a mother figure, there wouldn't be any issues. I look at her and say you aren't any better than niece. My sister was shocked at my response and my parents reached out to have a stern talk with me about my son's interest in a girly show. They also suggested that I apologize to my sister for my comment. Aita for telling my sister she is no better than her daughter? Story 2. My wife and I have been married for 6 years now. My wife Grace is beautiful. She is a very girly girl liking things like pink, flowers, purses and heels. Before the pandemic, Grace would always dress for a runway. She would have on makeup, heels, dresses, perfume, smooth skin and etc. During the pandemic though my wife's job got moved to at home. She stopped her beauty routine and spent most of the days in long t-shirts, shorts, sweatpants or her pajamas. I understood it since we weren't really go anywhere. Grace also stopped wearing makeup, doing her hair, and shaving. While this bothered me cause I like having a beautiful wife, I figured it was till her job got moved back to the office. Now things are open again. My job has been moved to the office but Grace told me she didn't want to return and opted to keep working from home. Her wardrobe has completely changed in the 2 years of the pandemic. She hardly wears her dresses, cute shirts, skirts, makeup or anything like before. It's men's t-shirts with saying on them like I'm grumpy, jeans, sweatpants, and tennis shoes. And she has completely stopped shaving and waxing. Now she'll dress up a bit if we go out or if we have company but that's it. Grace tells me it's too much work. So now for the part where I may be an asshole. Before the pandemic, we went on a date night. Since we haven't done it I suggested a night out at an expensive restaurant. I did pick this restaurant on purpose. Grace said no and suggested we order takeout. When I refused she suggested a restaurant like IHOP or Chili's. Her excuse? She didn't feel like shaving her legs for one of her dresses and wanted to be comfortable. I snapped saying, it wouldn't hurt you to dress up for once. She accused me of only liking her looks. This isn't true. I told her I was just tired of feeling like I'm living with a homeless woman. Grace ended up locking herself in our bedroom. I know my words were harsh. I ordered a pizza and tried to apologize but Grace wouldn't open the door. I slept on the couch. Right now Grace is still giving me the cold shoulder, refusing to speak to me or be in the same room as me. I know I hurt her feelings with my words, however I think this is depression or isolation from the pandemic since before Grace had no problem looking like a model. Story 3. My sister, 20, got out of a terrible relationship and moved in with me and my husband and brought her 5-month-old son. She's dealing with a handful of issues from PPD to depression. I asked my husband if he'd be okay with her moving in and he said absolutely. Not just this but he was the one who picked her, brought her home. She stayed for 2 weeks and helped around the house. My husband started complaining about the baby crying but a newborn is expected to cry especially at night. He said it causes him stress although I suggested he put on earbuds. He suddenly told me to forget it and so I did. Last week, I had to go out of town to attend a friend's funeral without my husband. He said he wanted to stay with my sister to make sure she's okay. I returned home the next day and didn't find her or her baby home. My husband said she contacted a friend in another town and wanted to move with them and left that morning. He handed me a letter he claimed was from her. This felt so odd. Especially after reading the letter. I called her phone many times but turned out my husband found it and said she must have left it behind. I was worried I had no means of contacting her to make sure she was okay. I contacted relatives but they knew nothing. Yesterday, I got a call from an unknown number and it was her. We talked and she told me that she didn't leave on her own but my husband kicked her out after telling her that she was no longer welcome, and she needed to take responsibility for her decisions. I was in shock as she explained that she's not with a friend but at a shelter and she has no money. I waited till he got home and I blew up at him. He admitted he faked the letter and hid her phone, then argued that it's his house too and he has a say, but he shouldn't have lied to me about my sister and causing her to be homeless. He said I was being unfair and wrong to lash out at him for wanting peace in his home. I went upstairs and refused to argue anymore. I told him I'm going to pick her up tomorrow and he said he'd change the locks while I'm gone and I won't be allowed to bring her home. I'm thinking of going to a hotel but he kept saying that I'm letting my sister affect our lives by prioritizing her, but there's a baby involved, my nephew, and I can't leave him homeless. I get that it's house too but I don't see why he's so against her staying. Story 4. I, 54F, was supposed to officiate my brother Paul's, 56M, wedding. He is getting married to Beth, 49F, and she has been nice enough over the past 2 years. When they asked, I was surprised but excited to be involved. Everything was going well until this issue with my son Ben, 28M, and his wife Lucy, 27F. The backstory about Lucy: she and my son have been married for 2 years and have been together for 4. Lucy was also an alcoholic. Honestly, I would never have known, but she had told the family before the wedding. She was sober before she met my son and there haven't been issues since she joined the family. She went to rehab when she was younger and has stayed away from alcohol since. I had lunch with Ben. I mentioned the wedding and my son said they were no longer going after Beth uninvited Lucy from the wedding. This surprised me because they have gotten along so well before this. When I asked why, he said that she had found out about Lucy's past drinking and banned her from the wedding, saying she no longer trusted her. This seemed out of character, so after lunch, I called her to get her side. Image my surprise that she said, "I uninvited the wino." She went on to say that she was surprised we even let Lucy come to family events and that it wasn't safe to have her around others because according to her, alcoholics are not meant to be trusted. I told her that Lucy was sober and has been for years, but she just said, "That you know of." She's probably hiding it. Honestly, Ben should have left her when he found out, but that was his mistake to learn. I told her I did not appreciate the slander against Lucy and told her I was also not going to be able to make it either. She freaked out and said that I was leaving them in a bind because they now had to find a new officiant. For the record, their wedding isn't until December. I told her that unless Lucy can come, I'm not going either. This has now spread to other family members and they are divided. My brother is mad, and while he wishes Lucy could come, he thinks I should have respected his fiance's wishes. My son is happy, but Lucy now feels as though this whole thing is her fault and she would have just stayed away as asked. The rest of the family is split. Some think I'm making drama while others think she was being unfair. Lucy is like a daughter to me, but here other people's comment has made. Story 5. Alright, for context, I, 17F, and my ex, also 17F, dated for a little over a year. She broke up with me after telling me she was cheating on me with her baby daddy, 19M, for the last 4 months of our relationship. Naturally, I was hurt, but I moved on and so did she. Recently, she called me asking me if she could stay with me for a while because her BD has been abusing drugs in her and their child since she's had her son. I stay in a 2-bedroom apartment my brother and my sister-in-law pay for while I'm finishing school, and I give them money for the utilities and so on. I asked her why she couldn't stay with her parents or any other relatives and her response was, "They don't care for us like you do." And I asked her to elaborate and she said, "I don't want to be a burden, and they are fed up with me, I have no place to go." And I frankly told her, "That's not my problem." I told her I'm sorry that she's went through all of this, but I don't feel comfortable having her living with me expecting me to provide for her and her son. I told her it was fucked up that her family reacted that way and treated her like that. She started crying, saying she wanted to work things out and she would do anything to have a roof over her head and a place she could raise her son. And I told her I can't help her with that. I don't have the space, let alone the funds to pay for her, her son, myself, food, bills, etc. Especially the fact she despises working. While we were together, she never had a job and thinks she didn't need one. I asked her would she consider getting a job to provide for her son, and she said she didn't know how. I told her I don't have the faculties for this right now. And understandably she was hurt. But I sent her $100 to at least be able to get a hotel room. Her sister says that I should have let her stay with me and I'm standing my ground. I don't want to be guilt-tripped into this, but at the same time I feel guilty.